Good afternoon, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay? Again, my name is Jeff Bariza. I'm the Deputy Leader of the Progressive Conservative Party of Manitoba. And we are here today because the absolute lack of action of this NDP government on homelessness and the Manitoba housing. End Homelessness Winnipeg estimates almost 2,500 people are experiencing homelessness in Winnipeg right now. This is the highest numbers since the organization started counting in 2014. The minister's response? We're right on track where we want to be. That's not a comment taken out of context. That was her response to the media on this very story. The NDP committed to eliminating chronic homelessness in 2 terms. 2 years into that, and the problem is worse than it has ever been. Almost 2,500 Manitobans confirmed to be experiencing homelessness, more suspected. And the minister says housing 77 people out of encampments is mission accomplished. That's a broken promise, one of many the NDP made Manitobans. I can speak to this myself too because of my own community and what the minister accused me of false accusations with Oak Tree Towers. They were living with drug dealers that were selling drugs out of that building. Those people were prisoners in their own homes. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, everybody. And I'm here to basically add to what Mr. Breeze has already said. Fact is that we've got a government, the Canoe government, basically has broken so many promises that I think even some of you are running out of fingers and toes to count on those. We're looking at end homelessness. That was one of their key pillars in the election, in addition to fixing healthcare, in addition to fixing crime. We know that all 3 has gotten absolutely worse. The point is that they snowed Manitobans. We know that we're getting into the fall season. We're looking at the Minister of Housing. We're calling on the Premier today to basically, instead of focusing on bureaucratic shuffles, I think it's time, we think it's time to start shuffling some of their cabinet ministers, because things are absolutely getting worse just within the 2 years that they've formed government. They came in with no plan. They've gone on junkets. They're not listening to grassroots Manitobans right here in our great province of Manitoba, and in fact, it's getting worse. My own community of Beausejour, you've all heard the story. There's other stories all across Manitoba like it. Manitoba Housing is housing criminals. They're not making sure that their vacancies are filled with the people who need it most within the communities. I don't even think that matter of fact, I know for a fact that the minister has not reached out to our community of Beausejour and the other communities in the Lac du Bonny constituency to discuss this issue. As a former minister, if something like this would have hit the media, the first thing that I would have done, and I know many of our colleagues would have picked up the phone to reach out to see what we can do and schedule a meeting absolutely very quickly. So with that, everyone, thank you very much for taking some time this afternoon, and we'll open it up to some questions. Carol?
What evidence do you have that Manitoba Housing is putting criminals in Manitoba housing units rather than vulnerable families or families who need housing?
It's in addition to, and what evidence? Not to highlight any media sources or whatever, but I can highlight and quote our very own mayor of Beausejour, His Worship Ray Sherrill, who's spoken about that. He's getting, we're getting firsthand information from those Manitoba housing units, talking about some of those complaints. And we're seeing also with some of these individuals being housed in Manitoba housing units from outside of our province into our small communities.
And what evidence do you have of that?
they're in our communities. We're not talking cities of 700,000 people. We're talking communities of 3,500. So they're in our communities, and again, I look to the great support and leadership of our mayor and other reeves and mayors within the Lac Bonnie constituency, but we're also getting emails from other communities around the province stating the exact same thing.
So when you were saying that they're shipped, that sort of implies that the government or somebody is orchestrating this. Who is shipping them?
So it's the minister's job to have a handle of who is in the Manitoba housing units, and we know that there has been vacancies where they could be opening it up to Manitobans who desperately need those housing units. Instead, we know that some of these units are being housed, or some of these units are being used to house some of the people who are either out on parole or waiting something to do with the courts. The minister has those lists. Obviously, some of you in the media have obtained some of those lists. We have asked for some of those lists, but unfortunately the department is unwilling to share, not only with ourselves, but also the communities that's being directly affected.
If I could also, Carol, from the city of Portage la Prairie or Oak Tree Towers in Portage la Prairie, I can tell you that I heard from the RCMP in Portage la Prairie. I've heard the person's name from the RCMP in Portage la Prairie, and I heard it from Safer Communities as well too. The people in Oak Tree Towers and a lot of the people in the Manitoba housing facilities are prisoners in their own homes, and no one should have to be a prisoner in their own home in Manitoba.
So when you say the name of it, you mean the name of the person?
Yes. Yes.
So that's one person.
No, there's a number of them, and that person was causing the RCMP to be there. They were getting 30 and 40 calls a month because of one person. The fire department was having false alarms pretty well every day in Portage la Prairie. They finally took the residents and my advice that they should be looking at putting rock glass in the windows because of one person causing this much danger and harm to people. So there is other people like that in some of those buildings within Portage la Prairie, and from what we've heard from Safer Communities too, in other parts and in other Manitoba housing projects throughout Manitoba.
In terms of the homelessness numbers, the NDP says in terms of the people living in encampments, they house 10%, they say 77 out of approximately 700 people, and they say that BC sold off a large portion of the province's social housing stock while they were in power, so they're playing catch up essentially. That's why it's taking time to get units online and get people moving into housing. What's your response?
So are you hearing that from a spokesperson through the NDP?
This morning on Information Radio was interviewed.
Yeah.
Said 77 people have been housed.
Yeah, so which is 10%, which the math just doesn't add up when we're hearing firsthand from End Homelessness Winnipeg, they're estimating almost 2,500. So 10% of that would be 250.
The MLS Homelessness Winnipeg numbers include people who are couch surfing, not necessarily.
So when we talk about homeless individuals within Manitoba, we're specifically just talking about encampments or people that are homeless.
The Premier is talking about the encampment strategy and how many people are estimated to be living in encampments versus how many people they house. So far, which they say is 77.
I think at the end of the day, this was an election promise to end homelessness. And this again, these numbers have never been this high since they started counting these numbers in 2014. So I'd bounce that back to the Premier and say, we're not sure what track the minister is actually talking about, and the Premier is obviously backing her up. I don't even know what kind of track they're talking about, because they're definitely on the wrong track of getting this stuff done, and for the ultimate safety of Manitobans, specifically those living in Manitoba housing, but also it is impacting other people within the small communities, and of course the city of Winnipeg, which we've heard, and the city of Portage and other larger communities in this great province of ours.
It's also been when we were going into Oak Tree Towers on a weekly basis, to try and help those people out and to hear them out. We invited the minister out every time. And there was a number of times that we were there that there was Manitoba Housing staff that basically asked me to leave because we were trying to help those people out. So this government needs to step up. A lack of action is not the right thing to do. We need action right now. There's people in Manitoba that are homeless. There's people in Manitoba that are living on fixed incomes in Manitoba housing facilities that are feeling like prisoners. Nobody in Manitoba should feel like a prisoner within their own home.
Thanks, everybody. Any other questions? Oh,
Mr. Ewasko,
yes, sir.
I have a question on a different topic from another colleague, if I may.
Sure. As you know, I've never shied away from an opportunity to answer any questions, so thanks for this.
This is on the school nutrition program. The question from my colleague Josh Crab. Province's universal school nutrition program is returning for its second year with similar funding and a similar delivery in that divisions in schools can decide how best to use the money they've been given. The PCs have previously been critical of the program for not being truly universal. Can you elaborate on what that means and what concerns, if any, you have as the program enters its second year?
Right, so I think initially, as we already said, and you've just repeated it, it's not universal, and we know that, school divisions and schools are very much aware of the challenges that they have to deal with this, with the school nutrition program. We know that students and children learn better when they're fed, and this is, that part of it is a great initiative. But at the same time, when school divisions and schools take the funding, which again, this government continues to pat themselves on the back, but in fact, if you take a look at the numbers of the funding that actually went to school divisions, that amount of funding coming from the provincial government was drastically less than it has been over the last few years. And within that funding, they're being told that they have to direct that roughly $36 million to specific nutrition programs. Now that doesn't necessarily count for, and within that, school divisions have to then hire staff, have to have prep for the food, in some cases had to upgrade their kitchen facilities and those types of things. So that's all coming out of that one pot of money, which again, as you just said, those dollars and cents had not actually increased from last year at all. So again, I don't know where the Premier or the Education Minister is shopping, but when you do the basic math on those dollars and cents that this government has put towards this program, we're looking at roughly somewhere between 60 to 77 cents per student per day. And it's just not adequate, and it's definitely not universal.
What do you mean when you say that it's not truly universal? Who is it not including? Who's being left out? It's not truly universal.
Well, I guess what we will see is the report coming out, which we've already seen, the initial report of roughly, off the top of my head, because you just asked me this question here, of roughly about 35% of students actually getting those snacks. Totally opposite to what the Premier was doing with his photo ops, sitting at a desk with this with a sandwich, a soup, a fruit, and a salad, and a juice or a milk on the side of it. The students are not receiving those. And I think if this is truly going to be universal, that means universal for every student in Manitoba, north, east, south, or west. And that's not happening. Thanks for the question. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.